لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير هادي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل دلالة في النار. ثم أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O believers, what are you going to do after you've already made history? What are you going to do after you've already made your mark in history? What will you do now that your Ummah has already made its mark on history and been making its mark on history ever since it was an Ummah? You're part of the Ummah that started in Mecca when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ taught the people under the oppression of the Quraysh. He taught the people the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 13 years. And then he made hijrah to Al-Madinah. And then from there, spread Islam. What are you going to do? Your Ummah's been making history all along. This is the Ummah that took over the known world, Rome and Persia. So what are you going to do when you've already made history? It is as though when some people think that their history begins on the block. Like they think that this is their history. They have a very narrow view of history. What are you going to do when you're part of the Ummah that walked into Spain and controlled it for 800 years? When you already made history, then you're supposed to build on that history. If that history was built upon a belief system, you're supposed to build on that belief system. If it's built upon what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said and what he did, you're supposed to build on that. And one who will not build on that history, one who will not build on that legacy, and is looking for some other kind of legacy, is going to get lost. So today in Camden, New Jersey, and in other places, we're going to talk about violence, murder, and drugs. To the Ummah that already has an answer. To the Ummah that's living in the middle of something that's already been eradicated from their world and only came back to their world when they dropped their guard of their belief. Only came back to their world when they began to copy the ones who were using the drugs and the murder and violence as a power play, as a way of life. Yani, being a mobster, being a gangster, being a gang man, having some other kind of code besides the code of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Having some other code. Yo, gangster, you can't put no code next to that code. You ain't got no code with this code. This is the life. This is the word. This is kalima tayyiba. And no one can put another word, nor symbol, nor sign, nor act, nor family, nor name behind mu'min or Muslim. Yo, gangster, you lost your mind? You haven't got another word. Your word is gone because your history began maybe with Capone in them. But this history began when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Adam to the earth and ordered him to tell his children that there's no deity in worship, no deity in haqq, that you should worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yo, gangster, you don't have no place to stand. Especially if you're going to try to wear two hats. The hat of the gangster and the kufi of the Muslim. Or you're going to try to wear the sister mark and you're going to be a gangster. That's a mark against you. And not a mark against this ummah. Because this ummah's history is strong. This ummah's history, its legacy is wonderful. It's great. It's the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And gangster, your days are over. All your weak little plays and plays, your double talking, it's not the word of the Muslim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Oh, you who believe, اتق الله. That's the heart of a man, a true man and a true woman. Fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You don't get dressed up in the mirror fearing what somebody's going to think about how my stuff is hanging today. Because he fears his Lord. His Lord sees him. His Lord hears him. Huwa yasma' wa yara. That's the heart of a true man. You want some heart? Then let that mark on your head, gangster, be the mark of the one who is pious before his Lord. And don't you be our friend when in the masjid and our enemy when you're in the street. Yo, gangster, check this out. The heart of a true man, when he marries a woman, he marries her with the intent for family and to have children and to raise them. And for that legacy of his children, for them to step forward and truly be free because they only the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullaah, they're his slaves. That means they're not the slaves of any people. Not like you, gangster. You're the slave of everybody who needs a gangster. You're the slave of everybody who needs something slipped in under the table, gangster. So, gangster, this is not the brotherhood you're looking for. So in due time, you're going to go to your grave. No threat from me. I ain't got no gun. I don't even like guns. I'm saying when you face reality, gangster, when you go to your grave, you're going to be asked three things. You're our enemy, gangster. You destroy our call to Islam, gangster. You destroy our code of decency, gangster. We were the ones that brought chivalry to the world. It was no knights in shining armor. It was the believers that had that beauty, that beautiful sympathy for their women. It was the believer who would die for his wife or his daughter or for his young granddaughter. There ain't no chivalry. There was no knights in shining armor. So you want to be Needy and Capone and all them kind of cats? They all diseased dogs. And now you got to the point where you want to call you and your friends dogs. But the believers are men. We're not dogs. The believers are men and not dogs. The believers are brothers and not enemies. The reason the believers come together is because La ilaha illallah, gangster. And no other reason. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم وأصبحتم من نعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شافة حفرة من النار فانقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون. Listen to this, gangster. Hold fast, all of you, to the rope of Allah and be not divided. The rope of Allah, you know what that is, gangster? That is the Quran, which you don't know anything about except maybe to make some sound from your mouth. Except the sound of your mouth. And not just the gangsters. You oil seller who be smearing your oil in these women's hands in the street. You're an enemy to this dawah. You're an enemy to the ummah. You're an enemy to the believers. You're an enemy to decency. You may not mean it, but it's all true. It's like being two-faced. It's nifaq. It's giving the wrong idea about the beauty of the religion. Hold fast all of you to the rope of Allah, and be not divided among yourselves. And remember Allah's favor on you. Because you sitting here, gangster, you got part of Allah's favor. But you were enemies one to another. But he joined your hearts together so that by his grace, the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you became brethren in the faith of Islam. And you were on the brink of a pit of fire. And he saved you from it. You were on the brink of going to hell. And he saved you from it. You were smelling like you was going to burn up, gangster. And so far, at least you're praying, he saved you from it. You may come with something on your scale if you don't blow it away. Especially those who want to kill other Muslims. Subhanallah. You ever heard of such a thing? How does a believer put in his mouth or his heart that he might kill another one who bears witness there's no God but Allah? There's no deity worthy of worship but Allah. Astaghfirullah. Wrong translation. There's no deity worthy of worship but Allah. How does a believer have that in his heart? Where is the brotherhood? Where's the fear for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where's the fear of the punishment of the grave and the fear of going to hell? Taqtulu ikhwanaka muta'amidan. You would kill your Muslim brother on purpose. Gangster, you are in serious trouble. Wherever you may be, you're in serious trouble. Serious trouble. But Allah makes his ayat clear that you might be guided. So the book says, فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. You became brothers by the grace of Allah, by the ni'mah. Gangster, those of us who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as best we can, and those of us who worship Allah as brothers, and we only worship Allah together because we know the other brother wants to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is doing it for his sake. Gangster, that is the root of our brotherhood. And there is not another root. There is nothing else. Those who want to get near somebody because you got on some cool Timbs, you want to know how you can order them. Those who want to get near somebody who got a cool car. Those who are driving the cool car so somebody will get near and you're in trouble too. That's not the foundation of the brotherhood. The foundation of the brotherhood is how the Muslim Ummah came into history. And that is that we are khayru ummatin ukhrijat linnas. نَأْمُرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَنُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought this ummah out to serve the human beings. We invite and join the right, and we forbid evil, and we believe in Allah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. وَصَلَاةُ وَسَلَامُ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ. So gangster, you might have had a bad upbringing. Maybe your dad was a gangster. Sometimes that happens. You know, rather than have the legacy of Islam, you grew up in a house where your father was a gangster. Or maybe your mom was a gangster. But you know what? Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you if you accept this religion wholeheartedly, to come away from that and not to ever look back on that as ever any kind of positive energy whatsoever, because there is nothing positive. There's nothing positive about being locked up in jail as an enemy to peace and prosperity. There's nothing positive there, Ibadallah. Nothing positive, especially with those who want to keep going back like it's some kind of graceful period. You know what's in the lockup, Ibadallah. There's nothing graceful about it. There's no tazkiyah. It's do this and do that. Take them clothes off right now. Take them clothes off right now. Take them off. On the visit, take off them clothes. Come from the visit, take off them clothes. Shakedown time, take off them clothes. Take them off. There's some honor there, Ibadallah. We need to tell this thing like it really is, so we don't get played. We don't let Shaitan play us, And from a point, we know what point we're going to purify ourselves from. We know what we want purity from. We know what we want purity from, and we before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would never want that ever in our life, or even worse, the life of our children. Because this is such a thing where people accept this as being some kind of true culture where a man gives up his freedom for a few dollars, or gives his freedom up because he hasn't got the courage to kick a drug, or gives up his freedom because he's flim-flamming. Taalib Abdullaah. Need you. We need you out here. We need you. Need you to get back on your, get to on the right. Salatul mustaqim. Keep it straight. Need to study again. Need to get a hold of your kids. And we're going to keep saying that because having a hold of your wife and kids is a foundation of society. And you and I, we owe it to these people when I say it's our responsibility to show an example of what Islam is and not to show an example of criminality posing as Islam. That's not us. So if we're going to be brothers, understand the first step of our brotherhood is that we love each other. Fi sabilillah. That only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the heavens and the earth, that we love each other. Reported by Ibn Abi Hatim in his tafsir, may Allah have mercy upon him, that Sadaqah came to Al-Medina. Umar ibn Khattab and his servant came out to greet the caravan. When the servant saw the vast amount of Sadaqah that was distributed among the Muslims, he said, this, the Sadaqah, the loot, the money, the wealth, this is the favor of Allah. You know, Ibadullah, see, many people make that mistake. They take the loot, the sadaqah, the money, that's Allah's mercy. Or anybody who got loot, the sadaqah, Allah's having mercy on him. There is no evidence to show that somebody has a lot of loot, that Allah loves that person. There is no evidence like that. That person is being tested, being tested, being tested. There is nothing that says, boy got loot. You know, Allah loved that boy. Boy got loot. Who says? Where's that? So Umar ibn Khattab straightened him out. Radiallahu anhu, when he said it, he said, this is the favor of Allah. He said, this is His mercy. The money, this is the mercy of Allah. Umar ibn Khattab said, كذبت ولكن فضل الله ورحمته القرآن قل بفضل الله ورحمته فبذلك يفرح هو خير مما يجمعون. And so Umar ibn Khattab said, you are mistaken. Meaning, he said, كذبت. Either that means you're mistaken or you're lying about that. He said, كذبت. That's wrong. That's not the mercy of Allah. That's not the fadl of Allah. He said the Quran is the fadl of Allah. So, and then he read the verse to the boy. He said, is it by, say, bifadlillah, the kindness of Allah and His mercy, in that one should be happy. It is better than what they gather together, meaning the loot that they have gathered up. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله جل جلاله يقول يوم القيامة أين متحبين بجلالتي يوم أظلمهم في ظلي يوم لا ظل إلا ظلي. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said that the Messenger of Allah said that Allah will say, where are those, the day of judgment, where are those who have mutual love for the sake of my glory? Today I shall shelter them in my shade when there is no shade but my shade. Meaning, where are the people who formed a bond of brotherhood and sisterhood for the sake of Allah and whose desires were for the sake of Allah? They did not come together for wealth or any other purpose connected to this world. Rather, they came together for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. So gangster, Muslim gangster is an oxymoron. A word that means two words don't go together. Muslim and gangster, they don't go together. Muslim thug doesn't go together. You have to separate from the people. If you're in an environment with thugs, you need to roll. You need to move out. Leave them alone. Come to your jama'ah. Learn your deen. Don't pretend you know it by memorizing some verses. You know, I can memorize some verses, and then when I'm talking to the girl, I got to memorize. So here's my verses. I don't go to Salat ever, but now I'm talking to the girl. I got something to say about, you know Surah Al-Baqarah? Subhanallah. Al-Quran shahidun lak aw shahidun alayk. The Quran is a witness for you or a witness against you. The Quran is what is memorized, what is read, what is reflected upon, and what is applied in the life of a believer who says he knows something about the Quran. And it's not a date tool. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Gangster, we got a long way to go on that road, but we need to get going. Nobody knows when his time is up. Welcome to Salah.